Tibetan political NGOs condemn the cremation of deceased Tibetan Lama in Vietnam without family consent following his death in custody, demand international investigation. Dorje reportedly cremated before inquiry fueling suspicions of Chinese involvement in arrest and death of Tulku Dorje Rinpoche. Dharamsala, 21st April 2025. Tibetan political NGOs voiced vehement condemnation following report of cremation of Tulku Dorje Rinpoche, a highly revered Tibetan Lama without family's consent. Rinpoche is reportedly to have tragically died in the custody in Ho Chi Minh City, Vietnam in late March under suspicious circumstances that demand immediate scrutiny. Disturbing information indicates that Rinpoche's remains were cremated in Vietnam without the consent of his family. Rinpoche's detention, his untimely death in custody, and the subsequent unauthorized cremation constitute a grave violation of international legal standards and can be seen to represent a deliberate obstruction of justice, raising a serious question regarding China's involvement in his apprehension and death. Tibetan political NGOs reiterate their urgent demand for a full and transparent international investigation into the circumstances surrounding Tulku Dorje Rinpoche's death. This development coincided with a deeply troubling report of the escalated crackdown and the intensified scrutiny measure in the local area of his monastery in Golok, Tibet, further fueling the global concern and demand for immediate international intervention. Tibetan NGOs are also deeply concerned for the well-being of the monks in Golok, where eyewitnesses' accounts detail an immediate and intense crackdown at his monastery. Surveillance has spiked. Movement is heavily restricted as monks and the lay people face ongoing intimidation. Tibetan political NGOs are calling for full and transparent investigation in the circumstances surrounding Tulku Dorje Rinpoche's death and for his remains to be returned to his family in Tibet, urging immediate safeguard and security measures for the 5 months in Lumu Monastery, currently in Vietnam, who are confirming the great danger and potential threats. Calling for a foreign government to press Vietnamese and Chinese government for answers and to condemn the escalated crackdown and intensified security measures in Lumu Monastery in Tibet. Urging the United Nations to establish an investigation into the possible extrajudicial execution of Tulku Dorje Rinpoche to identify everyone responsible for ordering, planning, and executing any operation connected with the circumstances surrounding Tulku Dorje Rinpoche's death.
I believe that Rinpoche's unexplained and sudden death that took place in Vietnam reflect a broader pattern of China's transnational repression in foreign countries like Vietnam. So in your view, how does this case constitute an example of transnational repression? If so, how do you see Vietnam's role or their complicity in enabling such actions against Tulku Hungkar Dorje Rinpoche's death?
Thank you for your question. Your first question regarding transnational repression. The Chinese government's transnational repression for the Tibetan people has been there for so many years, and as we all know that, right, Tibetans, let me give an example of Tibetans in India and Tibetans in Nepal as well. We all know very clearly that many of the Tibetans who were born in Tibet and who live here in exile are pressured by the Chinese government not to say or not to, participate in, political activities through their families back in Tibet, right? So because of that, many of the Tibetans who are in India, who were born in Tibet, have completely disconnected their relation with the families back in Tibet. I know many of my friends within our Tibetan community here in India, for those who were born in Tibet, it seems that it has become very common by saying that nowadays I don't contact or I don't talk to my families back in Tibet because few days back or few months back, the Chinese officials, Chinese police have come to my house and then interrogate and then asked about my involvement in terms of the political activities, whatever you name, whether you are in a news media, whether you are in a Tibetan government in exile, or whether you work with the Tibetan NGOs. This is very common. And I have seen and I have experienced that myself. And with that, with Rinpoche's case, Rinpoche was killed in Vietnam. And we believe that, I personally 100% believe that it is all done by Chinese government. And when someone escapes from Tibet, according to the UN, Declaration on Human Rights, or according to UN 1951, Refugee Convention, when someone escapes from one place to another, one country to another, the receiving country has a responsibility to protect that person. So right now, what the Vietnamese government has done is completely, gone against the UN Convention on Refugee Law. They have failed to protect the life of the Rinpoche. And thus, I also believe that Vietnamese government also has 100% to give a justice to Rinpoche as well. And so thus I say that, Vietnam is, as you said, that Vietnamese have a very good relation with the Tibetans in terms of the religious, Buddhism. And so, and right now, this situation, I'm sure that many of the Vietnamese who are based in Vietnam right now are aware of the situation, and now it is, I think, time for them to how they can, act in this regard. When Tibetans are asking for justice, when Tibetans are asking for investigation, more information. And recently, I'm very glad that one of the Vietnamese independent journalists have covered the issue. But I really hope that there would be more Vietnamese covering stories or information on the Rinpoche as well. But finally, in short, Vietnam has, because it is the international image as well. The whole world is watching what the Vietnam is, how Vietnam is handling regarding the Rinpoche's case. And they still have a time. They still have a time to give a proper, investigation, proper report, why Rinpoche died, how China is involved. And they are answerable to the millions of Tibetans inside, outside, and millions of people who are watching the Rinpoche's case right now.
Just want to give small comment on transnational repression thing. So I feel that I think the transnational repression, it comes in all forms and at different level. It can also happen in everyday life through intimidation or through threats or surveillance on Tibetan people, because we have family back in Tibet and you feel so much intimidation and threats that you fear the life of people back in Tibet. And to those, most of the transnational repression incidents comes to those instances, right? And we have seen it in different levels. We have seen the example of transnational repression. For example, in year 2023, when in San Francisco, when Xi Jinping visited, a group of Tibetan protesters were beaten, like a small, 17, 18, 16 years Tibetan students protesting the Xi Jinping visits are beaten by Chinese people. And this is a very visible form of transnational repression. And then right now, the Rinpoche's murder in Vietnam is a different level of transnational repression. This is that is an extreme level, right? And that also shows that China And for example, so that is why I feel that their approach to murder in this free country is we all should see it as a very critical moment, and Vietnam also, because I feel like Vietnam should not trust China, because they should take example and learn from the other movements, learn from Tibetan, learn from Hong Kong, Uyghurs, and then because they're able to operate such murder in Vietnam shows that that not only Rinpoche is repressed, but I feel like Vietnam is also being repressed by China. So that is why they should learn from it and take actions and take their own stand for their own country before it gets too late.
TYC have organized protests, submitted appeal letters to the Vietnamese embassy in New Delhi. And you just acknowledged that there have been no response and silence from the Vietnamese government. And a press statement was just read out calling for an independent probe into Rinpoche's death. Uh, uh, so considering this incident, International Rights Watchdog, Human Rights Watch has called on for an independent and open investigation into Rinpoche's death. However, we're yet to see any concrete steps taken into that direction. So how do you interpret the silence or inaction from the Vietnamese government?
Like Tibetan Youth Congress, many of our organizations, we have organized protest campaigns, and we have also submitted letters demanding the transparent and independent investigation and return of his body to his family and monastery institutions. But so far, unfortunately, we haven't received any response, and we haven't seen any concrete results. So, and the witness silence on this clearly shows the Chinese influence in those Southeast Asian countries, including Vietnam. So for that, I think we need to strengthen our movement, and we have the space, and we have to make our voice louder and stronger.